Good afternoon. I'm Lori Matson, President and CEO of the Tri-City Regional Chamber. Welcome to the third annual Tri-Cities Diversity Summit. As you may know, October is Global Diversity Awareness Month, a month to pay tribute to the diverse minds and beliefs held by all cultures around the world, a time to open your mind to new views and ideas and enjoy a fresh perspective you may have been missing. I hope you were able to join us for the 5 listening sessions held over the last couple of days. There have been amazing discussions on racial equity and reconciliation, citizen and law enforcement relations, child well-being and education equity, economic inequity and opportunity, and DEI starts in the C-suite. Thanks to all the session moderators and panelists for coordinating and participating in these important discussions. All the sessions will be posted on the Chamber's YouTube channel, as well as our website, tricityregionalchamber.com. Before we get to our keynote presentation featuring Skot Welch and honor the Tri-Cities Champion of Diversity Award recipients, I would like to recognize our Diversity Summit sponsors. Without their support and partnership, this event would not be possible. Our premier sponsor is Battelle. Gold sponsors, Greater Columbia Accountable Community of Health and HAPO Community Credit Union. Silver sponsors, Columbia Basin College, Energy Northwest, HPM Corporation, Cadlick Regional Medical Center. Bronze sponsors are Bechtel, BNSF, Carbitex, Christensen, Redder Company, Sotheby's International Realty, and Washington State University Tri-Cities. Thank you all for your investment and partnership. We have a couple of important member announcements. I'd like to welcome the Chamber's newest members. We know times are tough for many businesses, but we're fortunate to have these members join the Chamber and become engaged with our organization. Welcome to Eco-Maids of Tri-Cities, Yakima and Walla Walla, Pharos Technical Services, LLC, Salon Remedy, Tress FX Beauty, and TC Clean. Next, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the October Outstanding Member of the Month. Since March, our Awards and Recognition Committee has been selecting businesses to recognize that are going above and beyond to strengthen the community in the midst of COVID-19. This month's recipient is Kiona Vineyards and Winery. Kiona has always been a great asset to neighboring wineries, offering their knowledge, equipment, and help when needed. During the COVID-19 pandemic, they're making a special effort to encourage their customers to purchase from their smaller neighboring wineries. Also, they are donating $1 from every Limburger bottle sold for the remainder of 2020 to the NAACP. Congratulations and thanks, Kiona Vineyards and Winery. I have the privilege of announcing the first ever Tri-Cities Champion of Diversity Award recipients. The Champion of Diversity Awards recognize an individual and an organization who demonstrate outstanding achievements and sustained commitment to the pursuit of diversity and inclusion in the community and the workplace. Let's get to the Champion of Diversity Award recipients. Jordan Cheney has been selected as the individual recipient. Jordan was selected for his dedication to raising issues of diversity, promoting intergroup relations among persons of different backgrounds, and participating in a variety of corporate and community events that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. Jordan mentors troubled youth in our community through art, public speaking, and more. Jordan helped to create the Community of Hope Wall in Pasco and was recently appointed by Governor Inslee to the State Task Force on Independent Investigations of Police Use of Force. Please welcome Jordan Cheney, Tri-Cities Champion of Diversity Award recipient.
Hey, I wanted to say thank you to the Tri-City Regional Chamber of Commerce for this incredibly unique award. I'm very honored by the intention, and the plaque itself is very beautiful. So I want to say thank you very much. And I wanted to share a little bit about diversity and what it means to me and where it comes from in my life. Me and my brothers were born in Alexandria, Virginia. And my father, he lost his life in his battle to mental health. And I was about 4 years old when my brothers and I and my mom, we moved to LA. And we lived in immigrant communities. All of my neighbors were Mexican. They spoke Spanish. My mom, she's white. She speaks fluent Spanish. All my first crushes were Latina girls. But also in the neighborhood that I lived in, we had drug addicts. We had Black neighbors, white neighbors. We had gay neighbors. I remember waking up in the mornings and hearing my Muslim neighbor saying his morning prayers. I accepted this as normal in my life. And this was in LA when I was a kid. And we moved from there to Oxnard and then again in an immigrant community. And then in 1986, my mom moved me and my brothers here to Pasco, Washington. And I knew how to assimilate really easily because the kids were just like me. They were brown kids. There were neighbors that were of all different cultures and backgrounds. It made it very easy to adapt and assimilate because what my mom taught me at an early age is the value in all people. She used to tell me to steal something from everybody. And she wasn't talking about money or she wasn't talking about belongings. She taught me that everybody is a secret guru in disguise for you. It doesn't matter what they're dressed up as or what language they speak. Everybody has something to teach you, something that you need. And that idea used to make me go, okay, well, I want to listen to everybody. I want to gather stories. But essentially what my mom was teaching me was the inherent value in all of us, that God didn't make any junk. And that if we're going to be kind to one, we should try to be kind to all people and to live compassionate lives. And it's what really drives my work at the Juvenile Justice Center. When I think of the most marginalized, oppressed voice in any community, it would be the incarcerated youth. They're in a system that they don't understand even how they got there. And they are the most deserving of compassion in my eyes. And compassion means the ability to suffer with another person, to actually be in their struggle and to be in it with them to a degree in which you are creating a lightness or helping them ease the pain of that suffering. So when I think of diversity, I think of compassion. When I think of compassion, I think of who needs it the most, and that is where I try to spend my time. That's where I try to spend my energy, and is to uplift the oppressed voices that I'm in community with. So thank you, Tri-City Regional Chamber of Commerce, and thank you to all those that, threw my name in the hat for this incredibly beautiful award. It's all see-through. But I hope that you guys continue to fight the good fight, keep love in your heart, speak truth to power, and lift one another up. So thank you.
Jordan, thank you for your leadership and the example you're setting, and congratulations. Next, I have the pleasure of announcing Pasco School District as the Tri-Cities Champion of Diversity Award for an organization. Pasco School District was selected because of their commitment to a diversified workforce, exhibiting visionary and insightful leadership, and to resolving inequities, cultivating and promoting diversity initiatives, and more. Pasco School District has a consistent message displayed in their actions of being focused on every individual student. Their leadership is exemplified in their goals, their practices, and their community presence. Please welcome Pasco School District Superintendent Michelle Whitney.
It is my honor to accept this award from the Tri-City Regional Chamber of Commerce on behalf of a network of people in Pasco School District who really do truly believe in diversity, equity, inclusion. It's been my honor to serve this organization for 25 years and stand on a foundation of those who've come before me, who've prioritized the needs of Pasco School District youth. So with that, it's my extraordinary honor, and thank you again to Tri-City Regional Chamber for this award.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks for your leadership as well, and congratulations to Jordan Cheney and the Pasco School District. We are proud to honor you as our first Tri-Cities Champion of Diversity Award winners. Now I'd like to turn the program over to our gold sponsor, Carol Moser, Executive Director of the Greater Columbia Accountable Community of Health, to say a few words and to introduce our keynote speaker. Welcome, Carol.
Thank you, Lori. As Lori mentioned, my name is Carol Moser, and I'm the Executive Director for Greater Columbia Accountable Community of Health. Greater Columbia ACH is one of 9 ACHs across the state that bring people together with a common interest in improving health and equity. But health is determined by more than visits to your doctor. Health starts in our schools, homes, workplaces, neighborhoods, and communities, and the social conditions in which we live. All Americans deserve an equal opportunity to be healthy, but disparities exist in this community that make it impossible for some. That is the reason that Greater Columbia ACH is very proud to sponsor this event. That through your participation in the Tri-Cities Diversity Summit, you will understand the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion as it relates to the health of our entire community and our ability to reach our highest potential as human beings. Now, I have the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker today. Skot Welch is a global diversity and inclusion strategist. Skot is the founder of Global Bridge Builders, a firm focusing on organizational development, cultural transformation, and inclusion. He has been a global bridge builder long before founding the company in 2006. Growing up in a military family gave Skot a unique perspective on diversity that he still carries, and a passion for helping organizations tap into the vast experiences of their employees to create stronger businesses. Currently, Global Bridge Builders serves a wide range of clients in the United States and in 7 other countries. Skot is also an author, lead curator for TEDx Grand Rapids, and founder of the Mosaic Film Experience. Skot and his wife, Barbara, reside in Michigan and have 2 children. Welcome, Skot.
Thank you so much. And it is just a real privilege to be here. I'm so honored and want to say thank you to Lori, Elizabeth, Austin, and for the folks at Tri-City Regional Chamber of Commerce for allowing me to be a part of your great occasion. And I had just having conversations with the group, just the team saying, you know, how great it is to spend time with an organization that knows how to pivot. Of course, we've all kind of had some very, very interesting times and things kind of put in front of us. And, you know, to see an organization and a team that is going to provide value to the members anyway, right? In spite of the kind of the interesting and hard times that we can experience from time to time and have seen during this time. But I just want to say again, thank you again to Tri-City. Want to talk to you today about change and the culturally competent leader. And that's a really, really big thing because I think the culturally competent leader, in fact, is a very responsive leader. They are able to, as we said, they're able to pivot. And within the whole idea of change is that a culturally competent leader is not afraid of change. They're really they're desirous of growing. And so that kind of pulls them into maybe sometimes some unpredictable situations. But I tell you, the culturally competent leader is actually wired for change. And he or she, they understand that that this is just the times in which we live. Bill Gates wrote a book, Business at the Speed of Thought. And I think that's really apropos in terms of the marketplace. And so we're going to talk to you today about change and the culturally competent leader within the context of some of the events that we've experienced. And just again, thank you for this opportunity. So the first one, I want to put this guy out here, Dr. Edward Deming. He is actually a really amazing leader that I believe his story kind of goes unsung to some degree. But he was the father of total quality management. And so folks in production and folks in manufacturing, you'll probably know this gentleman. But Dr. Edward Deming was responsible really for the thinking around total quality management, ISO, Six Sigma, those types of really, really successful quality process initiatives. But more important than his picture, the left side of the screen says, you know, this is one of his quotes. He says, it's not necessary to change. Survival's not mandatory. And when I read that, I was just, wow, really struck by that. Because here's what we need to understand. We live in a very, very dynamic marketplace. Of course, there's so many things going on, but we also have to understand that in the midst of all that, the marketplace still does not owe us anything. We have to win our customers and our clients' trust every single day. Even as we work within an organization, we have to earn the trust of our colleagues every single day. And within the midst of this, we have to understand that the marketplace is changing, right? And our work environments have changed, and certainly the way that we do work. But only the organizations that are able to change will survive. I mean, you just ask Blockbuster, just ask Circuit City, other organizations, and I'm sure there are organizations that didn't quite make it even during COVID. But the point is that really the whole idea around this mindset that Dr. Deming spoke about is exactly a way of thinking. And so being able to change, being able to pivot is a cultural competency in this day and age. And as we talk about it, as you can see, I mean, think about this change. I mean, we are living what I call in case study, right? When we used to teach at university, we would study case studies all the time. I kind of feel like we're living in one right now. And here's two pandemics, by the way, and again, and both deadly, by the way. The COVID-19, we understand kind of how that set things apart. And then just after the holidays, May 25th, a guy by the name of George Floyd was murdered on live television. And then what was really something for me to see was just the whole idea of how people around the world took the streets. And it told me that, there's something there's something much bigger going on. And one of our clients, in fact, is North Central University, where they had George Floyd's first memorial service. But he was actually a leader in his community. And I tell you, but I think people didn't take the streets because of that. Some people did. But when you go to London, when you go to Berlin, when you go to Barcelona, and you see people all around the world on television taking the streets, what were they getting at? We live, again, they were getting at this whole idea of saying, we have to say something because wrong is wrong. Injustice is injustice. And what one of our heroes, Martin Luther King, said, he says, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. I tell people that one of the things that we cannot afford to pursue, I guess, or one thing that we have to kind of push to the side right now is the notion of being comfortable. This is not that day and age where we need to, the goal is to be comfortable. No. The goal is right now we're living in a time where we have to be bold. We have to say things. We have to speak up because if we don't speak up, then we are actually challenged by, how are we going to communicate to our young people and even to our peers if we ourselves aren't able to make bold, courageous statements? And by the way, I'm not talking about making other people feel small. I'm not talking about being punitive towards each other. I'm actually speaking of being restorative and gracious towards each other. But we have to say something. When something happens that actually, even though the intent was not malicious, but yet the impact is damaging, we have to say something. So again, something to think about. So the question is where were you when the world changed? I put this out there because I had no idea when I created this slide some time ago that we would be existing within this kind of this very, very interesting and just strange time, because I actually created this slide prior to COVID and prior to the murder of George Floyd. But the question is still very, very relevant, and it says, and it asks, where were you when the world changed? I mean, look at these icons, these iconic brands. And I think what's really interesting is that none of these organizations manufacture what they sell, right? You think about it with Instagram, most valuable photo company sells no cameras. Uber, largest taxi company, no cars. Airbnb, largest accommodations, no real estate. Alibaba, largest inventory, right? Largest retailer rather, no inventory. Netflix, largest television network, fastest growing, no cables. And then finally, Facebook, creates none of its own content. So what we're seeing now is that we are in a very, very unique place. And I always say, you know what? So Toto, we are not in Kansas anymore. We are in a very, very, just very unique space right now. And I will tell you again, the time now is to be bold, speak out against injustice. Because really, and I saw this, and you saw it on my previous slide, that one of the protesters held up, silence equals violence. And so when we try to give ourselves a pass, when we try to say, you know, well, someone else is going to say something, well, you know what? That is not always the case. And so these are the times in which we live where we need to say something. So how did we get here? I mean, how do we get to this point where we can, you know, we've got this pandemic. We saw a human being, a man, murdered in front of us on television. We saw millions of people hit the streets in protest, from moms and their just baby daughters, right, to dads and all different community members. I mean, you know, blue collar, white collar, you name it. People just said, you know, enough is enough. But how did we get here? Well, one of the suggestions that I'd like to put in front of you today is that silence really equals agreement. And it makes us really complicit in some of the things we see. And silence is one of those things where it speaks very loudly because we really are saying a lot by not saying anything. So we are not living in standing on the curb and sideline times. This is the time to roll up our sleeves, whatever way you can, in whatever measure you're able to roll up your sleeves, to come alongside of someone. And hopefully they're not like you, because I tell you what, we are so much better together than we are apart from each other. And so this is the time to speak out. And it doesn't matter if it directly affects you. We all understand when we see a person that might be in another country from us, from ours, and they're crying. We understand tears because the language is tears. We understand when we see someone laughing, that laughter is contagious no matter what language, because the laughter is the language. But one thing that we cannot do in this day and age is we cannot afford to be silent, because it equals agreement. So look at, this is what silence does, by the way. So just look at the graphic nature of this slide. When I saw this, I said I had to share this because it shows us, I mean, look at this. The Holocaust was legal at one time. Hiding Jews was criminalized. Think about that. Slavery was legal. Freeing slaves was criminalized. Segregation was legal. Protesting racism was criminalized. And this is the friendly reminder, is that legality is not a guide to morality. But how did the Holocaust begin? How did slavery begin? How did segregation begin? How did it become legal? It's because people who did have a voice expected someone else to say something. And so silence actually pushed these just terrible inhumanities, these crimes against humanity. Silence actually was one of the biggest kind of catalyst to allow these types of things to be in place. So think about it. So again, don't tell me you don't have a voice. We have a voice. We all have a voice, and let's use it. Bias is expensive. I mean, look at the cost of this. So this is just one study of recent. 2018 says the W.K. Kellogg Foundation study showing that the U.S. would gain $8 trillion in GDP by closing the U.S. racial equity gap by 2050. Think about that. Bias is expensive. Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is dangerous. And so when we see the fact that this, and here's the thing, it's one of my buddies I was corresponding with yesterday, he brought up a kind of an earlier quote from some time ago, and it talked about, and I think it was accredited to Benjamin Franklin, but he said something to the effect that, things will not change until those who don't experience injustice are as outraged by those that do experience injustice. As of course, I'm grossly paraphrasing, so please forgive me in that. But the intent and the spirit of it is still there. But one of the things I told him, I said, hey, Andrew, everybody's affected by bias. There is not one person that is not affected by it in some way, because even if in fact you're not the kind of the end response or the end receiver of the bias itself, the person perpetrating the bias, it has cheated him or herself as well. Because you cannot oppress another person without being oppressed yourself. It doesn't work like that. You cannot plant an apple tree, an apple seed, and get an orange tree. It doesn't work that way. So what we plant is also what we harvest. And so bias is expensive, and it does not actually leave anybody out there to say, you know what, I'm totally free and clear. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. So this is one of the earlier illustrations that I got a kick out of some time ago. And initially it caused me to chuckle, and I looked at it, but then I thought about it again and said, you know what? This artist is actually saying something much more profound than me just getting a little chuckle. In fact, one of the things that the artist is saying is that if we're left to our own devices as human beings, we will hang out with folks that are just like us. And even going further, in terms of work and organizations, if we're left to our own devices as human beings, we will hire people that are just like us. I mean, think about that, right? When you think about this, so here's the thing. He says you're just the type we're looking for. So this obviously is a very comfortable situation, right? Because this person is hiring in his own image. And until we actually see organizations, again, my background, my ownership of my firm and having been in DE&I globally for over 23 years, I've seen and worked with the largest organizations on the planet. And I tell you that one of the things that I do when organizations tell me, hey, Skot, we're very diverse, that really doesn't tell me much, because it doesn't tell me whether they're inclusive or not. The first thing that I do is I actually don't go to the plant floor. I don't go to the more fundamental levels of the organization. I actually go to middle management and up, and then I go to the board. And that tells me the organization's real commitment, because if it does not model what I see on the shop floor, if it does not model what I see at the front desk and at the retail outlets, then the organization is really there's a lot of wind there. There's not a lot of actually implementation. There's not a lot of the application of the theory. And so this is where I tell folks, and even our clients and the organizations and the C-suites, that while this might be more comfortable for you, the picture that you're seeing here, it is not nearly as creative. There are several that I can cite instantly in terms of studies, in terms of the power of heterogeneous groups and teams. The Ford Motor Company did a study in their German operations some time ago. University of Michigan and Towers Perrin did a study. The Wharton School in Pennsylvania at UPenn also had a study, and they all said essentially the same thing. Heterogeneous groups, or diverse groups, when properly leveraged, they are much more innovative. And that makes sense if you really think about it. You look outside, look at our ecosystem, look at our environment, look at how there's a variety of flowers, and there's certain bugs that work with certain flowers, and bees fly from flower to bloom. You've got the birds, you have all this ecological diversity, and every single one of them is actually dependent upon the creation of the success of the ecosystem. You pull out one major member of that in terms of the bugs or the fly or the flies, the bees, the birds, and it actually begins to deplete what we have. That is because biodiversity is necessary. And so you think about it, it's right in the nature. It's right in nature. When we think about our investment portfolios, we're looking for, we hear the word diversification. Why? Because it minimizes risk and it maximizes opportunity or return. So we can't get shy when we have the opportunity to diversify in our friendships, in our neighborhoods, in our schools, in our businesses, at the senior level of our companies, and on the board level of our companies. Why is that? Because while this slide that you have before you is much more comfortable, it is incongruent with the marketplace of this slide. You see, these are our customers. These are the best and the brightest. These are our neighbors. This is the Mosaic. And so when your organization looks like this, within a world that looks like that, you can see that the disconnection is absolutely obvious. And so what can you do? One of the things is you have to begin to develop a pipeline, if you haven't already, where the talent that you're bringing in looks like this. Your board has to begin to look like this. Your supply chain has to begin to look like this. Why? Because we don't live in a homogeneous world. We live in a heterogeneous world. And so, this is where the opportunity is. And again, I don't even talk about this. I don't even talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion as an issue, because it's not. It's actually an opportunity. And smart organizations and culturally competent leaders understand that it's an opportunity and not an issue. Who wants to work on an issue, right? I mean, it takes a lot of energy. Of course, we work on issues all the time, and it takes a lot of energy, right? And it's tough. Whereas, if we look at this as having this amazing and beautiful mosaic as an opportunity, it actually opens you up to be much more creative, because in fact, that's what we need. I mean, these perspectives, this heterogeneous slide, even this group of people are just, this is the environment you want to create better products, better services, deeper supply chains, greater innovation. And in fact, the motto to our company, my firm's name, in a global Bridge Builders, the motto is actually innovation through inclusion. And that's a big deal, because when we look at it, I've had people, right, by the way, that they've had problems with diversity, but I've never met anyone yet that has had a problem with innovation. And so again, when you tie the two together and understand that your diversity in your organization, in your community, in your workplace is actually part of your strategy for sustainability, right? Because people make companies go. People make communities go. And to the degree that we don't have all the voices at the table is to the degree that we're missing out on something, and it causes us to be less innovative. So there's two catalysts for change, by the way. Consequence and conscience. Because of course we know we can talk all day about what we're going to do, but there's something about the individual, the organization, the community that says, here's what we're doing. And I found that the two things, the catalyst for behavioral change, consequences, because there are people, and I'm sure you probably met some of the folks where, and I meet them, of course, in my work all the time, but there's some folks that they are so hardened. And the problem with being hardened and also thinking that you're an expert is that you can't be taught anything. And so that's where you have what I call the 2x4 method, right? Got to, kind of, deal with them very, very differently than you deal with the person on the other side, where, that person just really they may not know some things. They may not know a lot of stuff, but if they have a posture to learn, my goodness, that is actually a wonderful environment for success. Again, I've been at this for 23 years, but I still consider myself a senior beginner, right? I'm learning every single day. And so again, the two catalysts for change are conscience and consequences. And some folks need consequences, while others, their conscience pricks them when they go to sleep at night and they're kind of thinking about what they heard someone say, or maybe something that they said. And they get up in the morning saying, I'm going to be a better version of myself. That is so critical. Here's the thing. We're all in this journey together, folks. Again, I'm not talking to you as like this guru of diversity. Yeah, I've been in it for a long time, but we are partners in making our world better, right? And it's not about me or you having a better or worse story. We have different stories, and therein lies the power of our connection. Do you know, in fact, I was watching a Nat Geo special And it was, I love documentaries, and that's kind of my favorite genre. And I happened upon a Nat Geo special where they did a whole show on solitary confinement. And one of the neuroscientists that they interviewed, he said, here's the deal. Pain is processed in the same part of the brain that isolation is. I'll say that again. Pain is processed in the same part of the brain that isolation is. So think about it in this time of COVID where we have to social distance. I come from family, we love to hug each other. We enjoy each other. We don't even need a reason to get together. But it's so hard because we know that times have changed right now. And again, I don't think in terms of getting back to normal, that normal actually is gone. We can go forward to a new normal. But I tell you, when we live in a world where we understand we were wired for community, folks, we weren't wired to point fingers at each other and talk down at each other. And we weren't even wired to reach down to each other. We were actually wired to reach across to each other, because again, we are so much better together. So we're living in what I call a Tball moment. And that is where, again, we have this opportunity where we have something that is too big to miss. Wherever you swing positively, I tell you what, this is the time to do it. So again, we got to swing. Let's do it positively, and let's do it together. So I want to, as I begin to conclude, I want to show you, just kind of find out where you are on this continuum. And this is just an opportunity for self-assessment. But first of all, is it apathy where there's no understanding of the issues? Are you one that we would consider aware? You know the basic concepts, but not but not active on behalf of self or others. Would you consider yourself active, well-informed, sharing and seeking diversity when asked and prompted? Or are you an actual advocate, committed routinely and proactively championing inclusion? So again, where are you on the continuum? Where do you want to be? And also, you want to help other people in their journey on the path as well. So I want to talk to you briefly about welcoming versus belonging. And there's such a big difference between organizations and communities that have where there's a difference between welcoming and belonging. Welcoming can happen with a sign, right? But belonging can only happen through other people. So one of the things, I'm doing lots of research with a team of mine, and we're looking at belonging across the United States. And our hypothesis is that belonging matters to cities and organizations as an umbrella and measurement of its health. We believe that belonging speaks to the health of the local community, diversity and inclusion, and overall what we call social cohesion. Belonging is more than merely possessing a welcoming stance with its current and new residents. Belonging is a measurable quality of cities, organizations, and can be actively influenced positively or negatively over time. And then finally, it can also lead to greater talent retention, recruitment, and retention. So we know that recruitment and retention. So we know that belonging really matters. And in order to do that, to move from welcoming to belonging, we're going to have to take that small little circle on the lower hand part of the screen and move it into the bigger circle, because that's where the magic happens. We want to get to the point where we're in a room where there's nobody in the room that is like us, and we actually just breathe it in because we enjoy being in that space. Oftentimes we want to get into a room where everybody's just like us. No, that's not the point. And it doesn't really enrich our lives to really any large degree. We want to get to the place where you can be in a room where and of course there's nobody like us anyway. There's 7.5 billion different interpretations of diversity, by the way. But we want to be in rooms where we can just breathe that pure oxygen, as I call it, because everybody in the room brings their own story, their own lens. And even though we might not agree on everything, we can actually even disagree in an agreeable way. And it's not to put someone down. And I know there's a lot of hate going on right now, but you know what? You and I can commit to not be those carriers of hate. We can be the ones to bring the different polar opposite groups together when they want to, and if they have a desire to. We really have an opportunity that we've never had before, because we're living in unprecedented times. So here's the thing. We don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. And I think one of the things I want to leave with you today is to understand that, no matter where you are, no matter where we are as human beings, we all see life through different lenses. It's not a better set of lenses. It's not a worse set of lenses. It's just different sets of lenses. And people have people have a right to come to the table simply because they're human, which takes me to my last slide for you today. I know the themes, the pillars that you've committed to: racial equity and reconciliation, citizen law enforcement relations, child well-being and education and equity, economic inequity and opportunity, and then of course, DE&I starts in the C-suite. The bottom line of all of this is what I call Ubuntu. I've been doing work in South Africa for many, many, many years. And one of the ideologies there that continues to stick with me wherever I go, and it informs my work even today, is something called Ubuntu. It's over 1,000 years old. It was brought to popular culture through Bishop Desmond Tutu at the 94 falling of apartheid in South Africa when Mandela became president. But Ubuntu simply means I am because you are. It also means that a human can only be human through other human beings. This is when I talk about reaching across to each other, never reaching down to anybody. Ubuntu is really where all the things that you've been discussing in your wonderful conference, this is where it all lands. Every single thing on this slide can find a solution within Ubuntu. I really recommend that you do a deeper dive in that. Again, it's got so many, it's over 1,000 years old, really, and it originating out of South Africa, by the way. And of course, South Africa is imperfect, but I tell you what, this Ubuntu is something that can help not just them, but it can help all of us. And so as you go off in your path, as you even go off into your work day after the sessions today, and again, thank you for Tri-Cities for this opportunity, I want to encourage you to do a deeper dive on Ubuntu, because I am because you are. Thanks so much. And I appreciate this opportunity to talk with you today.
Thank you, Skot. I've said this a few times this week. If you were here in person, we'd all give you a big round of applause. You can't hear it, but I'm sure it's happening. We really wish we could have hosted you in person and welcomed you to our community this week, but we've enjoyed working with you remotely as well. And we hope you enjoy a little vacation. Sounds like you've been really busy, and we wish you a little bit of rest after this. So
thanks so much, Lori.
Thank you. And thanks for sharing these important messages. And they touched on many of the topics and the information that have been discussed at the 5 listening sessions that were held throughout the week. Once again, I'd like to thank the sponsors of this week's event. We're grateful for the partnership and leadership of our community partners. Our premier sponsor is Battelle. Gold sponsors, Greater Columbia Accountable Community of Health and Hapo Community Credit Union. Our silver sponsors are Columbia Basin College, Energy Northwest, HPM Corporation, and Cadlick Regional Medical Center. Our bronze sponsors are Bechtel, BNSF, Carbitex, Christensen, Redder & Company, Sotheby's International, and Washington State University. I'd also like to take a minute just to thank our staff. This has been a huge lift. Doing events in general is so much work. Pivoting from doing a live event to doing a remote event has been a real uphill learning curve for us, but our staff has done a phenomenal job. I want to thank Elizabeth and Austin and Logan and Liz and Stephanie and Brooke and Jody. Everyone has really worked hard to bring this event to our community. So thanks so much to all of our staff. And also want to once again thank our session moderators and panelists. Your time and efforts are greatly appreciated. You added so much meaning and content to this summit. And just as a reminder, all of the sessions, including this one, will be posted on the Chamber's YouTube channel and at tricityregionalchamber.com. So please watch and please share. Thank you so much for attending today, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of your week.